Welcome to the International News Channel, News LD. Today we present to you a news entitled,
For 2023, the IMF forecasts a stall in growth in the Eurozone, against a backdrop of still high inflation. Economist John Lipsky and IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva in Washington on the 11th of April, 2023. Alex Wong /AFP International growth is slowing, with more and more unsure financial circumstances on the horizon. In its newest forecasts, revealed on Tuesday the 11th of April, the Worldwide Financial Fund, IMF, estimates that it shouldn't exceed 2.8% in 2023, against 3.4% in 2022. The slowdown is extra pronounced in the superior economies, notably in the Eurozone. The place growth is dropping from 3.5% in 2022 to 0.8% anticipated in 2023. Learn additionally, article reserved for our subscribers. Inflation in France boosted by hovering meals costs, against a backdrop of sluggish growth. The UK and Germany are anticipated to be amongst the solely nations in the world to file a contraction in their gross home product, GDP, respectively 0.3% and 0.1% this year. Even Russia's financial system, though underneath sanctions, ought to do higher, with a 0.7% enhance in its GDP. On April the 6th, the head of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, was hardly optimistic, declaring that international growth over the subsequent 5 years can be around 3%, our weakest medium-term outlook since 1990. China ought to drive international growth, with an anticipated enhance in its GDP of 5.2% in 2023, earlier than a sharp slowdown to 4.5% in 2024. However, it's inflation that notably holds the consideration of the IMF. And for good purpose, it's slowing extra slowly than anticipated, regardless of a sharp rise in rates of interest round the world. It ought to stay at 7% in 2023, in comparison with 8.4% in 2022. That is twice as high as earlier than 2021. And nicely past the targets that every one the affected nations had set themselves. In Europe, growth will increase ought to exceed 10% this year, 5.3% for the Eurozone, after plus 15.4% in 2022, plus 8.4% in the Eurozone. The chance of socio-political instability. Although food and drinks costs have solely elevated by 1.3% since August 2022 on the planet, in keeping with IMF calculations, they continue to be 22.3% above the common of the final 5 years, and 39.1% increased than earlier than the COVID-19 pandemic. Rising meals costs can have an effect on public funds and the steadiness of funds, warns the monetary score company Moody's in a Be Aware revealed on Tuesday the 11th of April. Actually, in poor and rising nations, meals worth subsidies signify a vital share of public spending. Iraq, for instance, devoted 1.1% of its GDP to it in 2022. Nevertheless, with the enhance in the debt burden, which has pushed 2/3 of low-income nations to the brink of cost default, their budgetary leeway is now restricted.